In this episode, we're here in New York City, far from the Marcellus Shale region of New York, where fracking would occur.
New York is wonderful. New York City, brings so many cultures together, and I love that aspect of New York.
New York City has such access to some wonderful things. I feel really lucky to be in this area.
There's an energy here. All the artists that are here creating, doing their thing. I love being part of that. I love the fact that I can get good food from the farmers market that comes from upstate New York. We get good water here that also comes from upstate. Putting all these things together, it's like, I gotta stick around here for it.
When the conversations about fracking first started, the conversation that was going on in New York was not, should we ban it? It was, how should we regulate this? And should we regulate it? Or, how fast should we start fracking? And the conversation has really changed to, we need a ban in New York. As a New York City resident, one of the things I'm really concerned about is our food shed. I do a lot of shopping at my local farmers market, and in New York we do have a growing agricultural economy.
Having good food and water is just so critical because I value my health, and this is my instrument. I sing. My body's my instrument. I need it to be functioning well, so I need to give it good stuff. As I get into cooking, because it's kind of a new passion of mine, like the most basic first thing that you realize is when you have great ingredients, it makes your cooking seem just that much better.
Getting quality products and then treating them with the techniques that we learned over the years sort of enables us to create the best possible dish we can. We always buy everything meat-wise locally. It's the same food I feed my family. It's good for the earth, therefore it would be good for us too. We recently opened a new restaurant called Telepan Local down in Tribeca, and so I need more local food. And like in this restaurant downtown, we'll be using the New York State water. So it's even more important that we thoroughly investigate what's going on with fracking and stop it. It might change things for me, for sure. Mm-hmm. Not might, it will change things for me.
More and more individuals are choosing to want to have access to healthy, local, organic food. Well, that means being able to ensure that we preserve the farms in New York State. So from Buffalo to Ithaca, from Binghamton down to New York City, all parts of the state, Main Street business leaders across all sectors, in the thousands have stepped up to say, no, fracking is not the answer for New York State businesses. So these business leaders, numbering in the thousands now, believe that the business case is made for actually choosing not to go ahead and frack and rather to pursue renewable energy. They're doing this first and foremost because it actually saves them money.
So one of my favorite pastors called me and said that his electricity bill was $10,000 a month and that it was killing him because he was spending 120 grand a year on his electricity costs and he only had 300 grand a year in total budget for his church. And we thought that solar energy could bring down the cost of his electricity. And that's how we kind of learned that solar was such a great fit for inner city buildings. My dream for public housing in New York City is that we would renovate and retrofit all of it. There's like 600 or 700 public housing complexes across New York City. The city and the federal government spend $500 million a year heating and cooling these buildings. It's like super inefficient. We really should have solar power on all the roofs, clean and efficient boilers, combined heat and power systems, and we should employ all of the young adults and train them who live in New York City public housing to do this work.
The effects of fracking and shale gas are already affecting the city. And if fracking were to move forward, the consequences for city residents could be irreversible.
What just happened here in this particular community is a gas pipeline came in through the Lower West Side of Manhattan, bringing in radon-laced Marcellus shale gas that has been brought to market from hydraulic fracturing.
How would people in that building over there be affected if fracking moved forward in New York State?
Well, so they would be affected by the radon that actually comes out of their stoves, but they also could be impacted through the water. It would be catastrophic for the city of New York if they allowed gas drilling in the New York City watershed. Well, guess what? If it's catastrophic for the city of New York, it's catastrophic everywhere.
You know, I grew up surrounded by pollution from the fossil fuel industry. So, you know, moving to New York City, you know, I thought there would be other things to worry about, but, you know, I'm facing the same issues that I had as a child from my own son. Where I grew up, there was a creek that was bright orange from pollution from the coal industry, and my dad taught me about that. So, you know, even as a small kid, I was aware of what happens when we're not careful with our land. I find it just a really shocking, dangerous, outrageous situation that something as insidious as a pipeline at a playground was allowed to happen. And when you compare this pipeline to the one that exploded in California, I mean, it takes out this whole neighborhood.
Fracking releases lots and lots of methane into the atmosphere, which is a very potent greenhouse gas. We're already at 1 degree of warming, and we get things like Hurricane Sandy and Typhoon Haiyan. So we don't want to see what 2 degrees of warming looks like. I grew up in the suburbs of New York, so New York is sort of in my blood, and this is my community, and I really want to protect it and do everything I can to stop another Hurricane Sandy from happening here.
I mean, people say environmentalists. I think of it as we're fighting for the human civilization. We want to save the planet, and it's for us to be able to live. I'm optimistic and hopeful, but I'm also very practical, because I know that the oil and gas companies are such powerful. They're the wealthiest corporations in the world, and they have such power. It really doesn't matter what you do, and it doesn't matter if you think it's small or big, because you never know what the ripple effect may be. Do whatever you can, and I think the most important thing is for people, ordinary people, to stay engaged. So far, we're the only state who has said no to fracking for now. And if we can do that, it gives a lot of people hope that it's possible to stop this.
From upstate to downstate, we're all New Yorkers. So love New York. Don't frack it up.